Well, these things happen, Stefan. It's not an issue. All right, guys, I hope you are doing well and everything's going smoothly and that you're getting to spend a bit of time working through the material for NCTE. So tonight we're going to be focusing on Learning Unit 2 and 3 with your assessment due, only the end of October, 26th of October. I'm not going to start working with that with you guys just yet because, as Stephanie pointed out, you guys do have assessments right around the corner. So for now, we'll just focus on content, and in one of our September collabs, we will start to look at the assessment and what is needed and what to start researching and what have you. So I know we obviously have the assess, but yeah, I have to really spread it out. Yeah, okay. So that's the thing, is that for this you've got the time, and obviously I will go through it with you guys, but at the same time I don't want to freak you out just yet. It's just unnecessary. So especially with the assessment that we do have, it's not a very difficult or overwhelming assessment. So rather spend some time just getting to grips with some of the content, and then we go from there. All right. So like I said, tonight we're looking at Learning Unit 2 and 3. Just some important stuff for you guys to be aware of in this learning unit, what features within the assignment, without your part and with your POE, just so that you've got, context, because context is important, just so you know what you should be focusing on. So the one thing I will say with regards to your assessments for this module is that your part and your assessment, I've spoken to the fact that they actually link and it's all based on Pringles and what have you. But what I will also say is that, in most instances, your part and your POE, your part will cover a certain aspect of content and your POE then covers other content. While this is true also of NCTE, it also does have, or should I say, it is a module that also has overlap. So there is content from your earlier learning units that features within your POE. So the normal approach of, we'll focus on the content and how it applies in that given scenario isn't necessarily going to work this time round. So there is stuff that you need to know from the earlier learning units that apply to the POE, which is obviously not a problem, but it just means when I am working through the content with you guys, I just will make sure that what I'm doing covers both lots of work, because I don't want you to be thrown for a loop later on, obviously. Okay, so let us have a look at Learning Unit 2. So the focus. So I'm hoping you guys have all had a chance to work through Learning Unit 2. And the focus and what is important for your assignment and your POE is going to be looking at the communication and cultural diversity and understanding that we have different contexts. Okay, that's okay. I understand that, like you say, time is always a challenge, but just to tell you where your focus and what I'm wanting you guys to really think about. So the one thing that this graphic here shows us is looking at different aspects. Great. So we're looking at the specific aspects that do with intercultural communication and looking at cultural diversity. Now, cultural diversity, we often in our country associate with our varying African cultures, race comes into it, religion comes into it, but there's so much more than that. So if we have a look at this graphic, we've got to understand that our context, whether it's a work environment, whether it is a home environment, whatever it may be, there's a specific context in which we communicate. So we've got to be aware of that. We've got to know the laws and ethics that we are working to make sure that we are working appropriately. We've got to think of social customs, non-verbal signals that people can have. So, for example, how in Asian countries such as China, if you're wanting to say hello to someone and you go and put your hand out to shake their hand, they're going to see that as a sign of disrespect, because for them, it would be to bow. So that form of non-verbal communication shows a level of respect. And it's about knowing what is applicable in a particular context that you are working within. The other thing we need to think about is age, gender, religion, and ability. Now, these are all important aspects that we need to take into consideration, because when we think about our work environment, every one of these aspects influence the way in which we communicate with one another, our own personal experiences, and it's how we see the world. So it's not to say that, if someone doesn't have, for example, a specific religion, that their views are seen as less than. It's more that their lack of religion needs to be respected, so that, if that is not what they believe in, that a particular faith or viewpoint is not thrust upon them when, we're in a context of a work environment. Everyone should have a right to their own opinion and what have you. So it's all about making sure we understand that when we're dealing with people and these different environments, we are going to have different scenarios where people can relate to one another, but heads, we've got to be thinking about how we are being respectful to one another. And for you guys, for your your assignment, you guys actually have to do a whole infographic on intercultural communication, and you can bring in these different aspects of culture and diversity and what we need to be cognizant of to ensure that we are working to the best of our abilities based on what is being presented to us. Okay. Neat. Again, not too theory heavy. Yeah, exactly, Stefan. It's all very obvious stuff. Um, you know, very self-explanatory. But it is important to understand that, and also to note, because you can use this for the sake of your part in your infographic. Okay. So when we look at that, just reinforcing this, is that when you are working with different cultures, we have different contextual differences. And so the context I just brought up in that diagram, but it's that we have different levels. We've got a high context culture and low context culture. So that means that your culture has similarities and has either a high level of similarities or a low level of similarities. So, for example, in South Africa, if you are Zulu or Xhosa, even though you are speaking different languages, and while there are key differences within the cultures, there are some enough similarities that people of those different cultures are able to understand each other, communicate with one another. So those cultural differences are mitigated because of those similarities. So that is when you have that high context culture. Low context culture, on the other hand, is when you have these too many differences to be able to easily relate with a particular group of people. So whether it be based on language way that they handle the interactions with people, whatever it may be. It's that there are very few commonalities, which means that you will battle to communicate with those people. So it's important to always make sure that when you're engaging, that you try and have um, a level of respect for a particular group of people, but also to just, think carefully about how similar or how different your culture is, your viewpoints are, and to make sure that you either choose to ignore those differences for the sake of work, or to use those similarities to actually um, improve your engagement with a particular group of people or a person. Okay, is that making some sense? Again, obvious stuff. Where pre-hand of the cultural, yes, Stefan. So, generally when you're going into a business meeting or any form of meeting, you do a little bit of research first, find out who the people are you're interacting with, what they're about. You do actually need to spend time getting to know them. Yeah. So that's the thing, is that it should be something that is high on the agenda with with any company, because if you're not aware of the differences, and if you're not aware of what's going on, you can't then be culturally sensitive. And also, everyone always goes, well, don't point out the differences. I've heard this in schools, I've heard this in work environment. And the thing is if we see these differences and we can praise the differences, then it's actually a good thing. But when people keep seeing differences from a negative perspective, that's when we have issues. I never thought of that, having to do research up becoming. Yeah, Stefan, it's you've got to know where you're going. Yes. You've got to know who you're talking to, what the focus is going to be. You know, are you going to, you find out their interests, their likes, their dislikes. There's a lot of research that goes into some of these business meetings, because, one wrong move can result in you losing a big business deal, which obviously costs you cash money for your company. And that is never a good thing. Okay. And the reality is, as people, as humans, a lot of people say, oh, well, your gender shouldn't influence the way you interact with someone, or, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. But the reality is, every single aspect of our life influences the way that we engage with people, the way we see the world. And it's, again, it's not trying to be negative or Debbie Downer. It's just going, I know these differences exist. Okay, cool. Let's see what we can do to either work with them, work against it, whatever it may be. It's not about trying to, I don't know, um, always point out the differences. It's that we're acknowledging them to make sure that we don't offend, hurt, or upset anyone unnecessarily. All right. Now, this next graphic that I'm showing you guys, this is super important for the sake of your part. Okay. So like I said, you guys are going to be making an infographic, and this infographic is based off this particular infographic or graphic that they've already created. It's figure 3.2, so chapter 3 of the textbook. And it's looking at effective communication across cultures. So again, it is unrealistic. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Stefan, page 123. It is unrealistic to think that everyone around you has the same culture as yourself. And there are instances where, again, you need to have cultural knowledge to be able to work effectively within a work environment. And This graphic is showing you the different ways that you can be effective in this intercultural communication, and your infographic that you're creating is all speaking to making sure that you communicate effectively in the given scenario of Pringles. Okay, so what's important here is that we have two main aspects that influence how effective our communication is. So the first side is showing you enhanced sensitivity to culture and diversity. Now, what is important here is that you guys will use the pieces of information from this, but you will then be expected to expand upon it. So while this gives you a bit of information, it's not giving you all the information that you would need to create an infographic that is informative and educational and what have you. So while this gives you the basic principles that you need to know and the basic principles that are going to be within your infographic, at the same time, you still got to do some work. So it's like they're giving you the basics and then expecting you to go and do some research. Yeah, exactly. So you are going to have to go and do that. But again, it's not the end of the world. It's not a ton of extra. You just got to pull extra information from the textbook, which again, is not super difficult. Okay, so just be aware that you can't just go and regurgitate this that's here. Oh, that's good, Chantal. The research is what actually, at the end of the day, makes or breaks a module. Like that's what gives it its depth and value for you guys. The basic stuff, the just repeating of theory is so boring, and no one wants to just do that all the time. So the research is actually of value to you guys. So we've got our enhanced sensitivity to culture and diversity. So overcome ethnocentrism. What that is where a country in particular, in this instance, doesn't see themselves as the be all and end all and looks down at other ethnicities and other belief ideals, all that kind of thing. So if we can see everyone as equal with, validity to their own cultures and viewpoints, then we can get over it. And then also recognize cultural variations, and that's that graphic I showed you guys with the two heads. So you've already got some of that information already there presented to you. And then to improve intercultural communication, we can study other cultures and languages like we were just discussing. So you could use that as a heading and then give a little bit of information underneath that. All right. So when you guys are actually going through this particular lot of content, just think about the add-ons that that I've said to you. You need to do a bit more research into these, so just make sure you do that. Respect style preferences, so they're meaning in terms of the way we dress and handle ourselves. For example, if you were going to have a business meeting from Saudi Arabia, chances are if you are a woman, you would probably get a man to be present within the meeting, because there is a different viewpoint in terms of women within business. If you, like I said earlier, with Asian countries, bowing instead of shaking hands. Again, it's all just about being aware of what is needed to have the best scenario or the best approach to actually reaching the people who you are trying to win over, get contracts with, whatever it may be. So use interpreters, translators, translation software if language barriers are present. Help others adapt to your culture. So, take them somewhere where they can get Shisanyama, or, take them to go see Soweto or whatever it may be. It's that you actually give them an opportunity to understand your own cultures. Then we have listen carefully and write and speak clearly. Okay, so those ones are kind of self-explanatory. All right. So that is the main focus of learning unit 2 and what's super important for your part. All right. Any questions with those? Or anything you guys need clarity on? To have a particular, yes, Stefan, very important. And something that will always be present no matter what. I mean, even as a lecturer and OT, you know, we have to be cognizant of different cultures and, you know, the way in which we handle ourselves and making sure we don't share our own particular political views or religious views or all that, to make sure that we are culturally sensitive to the students and other lecturers and what have you. And we're in a very like forward thinking institution. So, you know, it's just about trying to be a good person at the end of the day, because that's all you can really try to do. All right. So that's learning unit 2. So let's just look at learning unit 3. So I'm just pulling up the notes just to have either, okay, before I go through learning unit 3, have either of you had a chance to even look at learning unit 3 yet? Okay. Okay. All right. Then I won't like break down learning unit 3 in full detail. I'll give you guys a chance to work on it for our next collab. But what I do need you guys to focus on in particular is this 3-step writing process. All right. Now, the reason I say this is that in your POE and in your part, you're going to be using this 3-step writing process. So the one thing which is probably going to irk you guys, but you're going to have to do it in both your part and your POE, is that you are going to be submitting work that is deliberately wrong. So you're going to be submitting work that is full of spelling errors, grammatical errors, whatever it may be. Karen is in an empty room. Hold on, let me just send her the link again, because she's somehow... There we go. So for you are going to have to deliberately submit work with all these mistakes, because then what you do after that is submit the edited one. Yep, it is going to bug you. And the thing is that you're going to literally get marks for submitting wrong work. So it's one of those moments of you just got to breathe through it and do it. Hey Karen, sorry about that. I don't know why it went to another group. I'm just gonna check that the collab link is correct here. So strange. Glad you're with us. Okay, so we're just looking at, so I've just finished looking over learning unit 2. So we're just looking at learning unit 3 now. No, please don't worry. You're able to go and listen and catch up, so it's really not the end of the world. Okay, promise you'll get through. Yeah, exactly. At least you have learning year 3. So this is actually where, yeah, no, I know you will. This is where a lot of your marks are going to come in for your part and your POE. So what it is that the textbook view that all the writing that you do should take this three-step process, which is planning, writing, and then revising and doing a final draft. So you guys will plan something. So you will plan the communication, putting it out in a mind map, putting your ideas down on paper, thinking like writing out your ideas, the mediums you want to choose, all the information that is applicable, could be applicable. Then you're actually going to write the piece, okay, depending on whether it's the part or the POE will determine what you're writing. And then you're going to submit, like I said, deliberately submit a document with all this. Hello, Erin. You're deliberately going to be submitting a document filled with spelling errors, grammatical errors, fact errors, everything like wrong. And then you're going to mark it off. So you're going to use track changes, or you're going to use a pen tool in Word. I'm going to show you guys that later on. And you're going to highlight all the mistakes, and then you are going to edit it. Thanks to Stefan. And then you're going to edit it and then submit copy with all those corrections in place. So you're going to have to not edit yourself as you go. You've got to look at it almost like free writing, where you're just going to write it all. You're going to then put all those marks and everything into the document, and then you're going to submit it. Yeah, battle with Grammarly or Word or whatever you use. You've got to fight the urge to correct yourself as you go. So, like I say, this writing process, I think, is 30 or 40 marks worth of marks for your assignment and your POE. So it is important to make sure that you just follow the steps carefully, and then that's basically the main focus of learning unit 3, is just making sure you understand this three-step writing process. Because when I'm marking, I am looking at it based on based on what you have produced following the guidelines of this three-step writing process. So it is important to make sure that you do follow that. Does that make sense to you guys? I feel like I'm waffling, but I know it's important stuff at the same time. Okay. Questions? Erin, Karen, I know you guys obviously arrived a bit later, which is obviously absolutely fine. So just I would recommend going back and listening to what I said about learning unit 2, because what I spoke to was some of your part deals with intercultural communication and dealing with making an infographic based on the content on intercultural communication. Thank you, Stefan. There you go. See, we're here to help each other out. That way, no one falls behind. So, any questions for those that have come in a bit late, or for Chantal and Stefan? Any questions at all? So for learning unit 2, okay, learning unit 2, focus on the intercultural communication. Learning unit 3, the three-step writing process. And if you can do that, you will feel, yes, Erin. So like I said, I'm not going to focus on the part specifically now, purely because you guys have got all these other assignments coming up, and our part is only due on the 26th of October. So I'm mentioning it, but I'm not breaking it down just yet because it's a bit overkill to start looking at it now when you guys have, barely got time to do what you're working on at the moment, kind of thing. Okay. But just to know the context that this three-step writing process wow, guys, is present in your part and your POE. In learning unit 2, the intercultural communication stuff is going to be put into an infographic that you'll create, and that's in your part. I haven't lectured this week besides today, so I think my brain thinks it's holiday mode. Yeah, exactly. Oh dear. It's been a week. All right. If there are no other questions, guys, then we're done for tonight. Oh, Friday can't come soon enough, hey, Karen? Oh, yeah, sure, Stefan, go for it. Yes, of course. You know you can always use your mic. Pleasure, Chantal.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. In terms of referencing, this has never popped up for me before, only recently. What if you get a situation where there are two authors for an article and both authors have the same surname? Do you have to, every time when you in-text reference, put both the same surnames? Because it's not multiple, it's only two, and you don't do the ETAL thing. So what happens if there is a authors with the two same surnames? It feels so
Okay.
weird for me to like bring up both their surnames when like according to, and in my instance the surnames is Corsa or Corsa. Yeah, it's according to Corsa and Corsa. It feels so strange to repeat their surnames like that. Is there an alternative to that, or is that just how we're going to have to accept it?
Nope, that's just what you got to do. So it would be Smith and Smith,
It's
Green
Smith
and
and
Green.
Smith. All
Yeah,
right. According to
that's the
White
correct
and
academic
White.
approach. Yeah.
Wow. It
As
feels, it, considering that a large portion, not a large portion, but a good sum of information with one of the assignments I'm working on, um, deals with these two authors. I'm unsure if they're twins or sisters or brothers. They, I can't assume, but they have
husband and wife, or
husband and
wife
wife.
and wife, or
But I can't assume. I can't assume.
nope,
So
can
I
never
don't know.
assume.
And yeah, I don't know. It was very strange for me. This has never popped up before in my 2 years
Mm,
so far that both authors had the same surname. Maybe an instance where there was, like, with a huge collection of authors, that maybe two of them shared the similar surname or the same surname,
mm,
but never two authors.
yeah.
And you're forced to say, like, Smith and Smith. Like there's no shortened version of it. It just feels
Nope.
so redundant. It feels
I
like
know.
it's an error. I'm
But
surprised
it's, yeah,
Grammarly hasn't corrected me. But yeah, thank you for
it's
that. All
they
right.
yeah. They want their recognition, hey? Doesn't like they couldn't care less that they have the same surname. When it's
I
academics that just want their recognition.
I I almost want to, and I know this is not academically correct, but to start off by stating like Smith M and then like and Smith
Yeah,
J, for example, just to
yeah.
distinguish that there is a difference at the start, and then just continue on, just referring to them like, for example, Smith and Smith, and or in my instance Corsa and Corsa. um
Who's your
Yeah.
lecturer?
That is for the
OT.
sociology assignment.
Okay,
So
I don't
my
know what those lectures.
OT. Oh no,
Yeah,
not
I don't know
sociology.
those.
Apologies. Not sociology. The seventh is the media studies one. So it's you.
Oh, it's me.
Yes,
Well, if it's me, then it would be
because the
fine.
seventh
Like if
one
you,
is studies. So yeah.
yeah, if it was for my one, I wouldn't have an issue with you identifying that they two like in the first thing. But I know other lecturers would. That's why I was asking who it was for.
At the start
So,
of the, because it's a separated paragraph. At the start of the paragraph, according to, I just had it as Corsa. Um, the first letters of their name, just to distinguish that there is a
mm,
difference. And
yeah,
then in the rest of the paragraph, I just refer to them as Corsa and Corsa, and then in the in-text referencing, Corsa and
mm,
Corsa. Is that fine with you?
yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah,
Awesome. Cool.
yeah.
That's all I particularly needed to know. Thank you. That is actually
Okay,
greatly
sure.
appreciated.
No
Ugh.
problem at all.
Cool.
All right,
Will
guys.
this be it for the lesson?
Yeah,
All
that is
right, cool.
it.
Wow, I didn't. Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much for the insight. I really, really appreciate it. Apologies, I haven't had the opportunity to read through much of the learning units. I've been juggling 5 modules and having to juggle between all the work has been quite hectic.
No, I know what it's like. I totally understand. Don't stress. All right, guys. Have a great evening, and I'll chat to you
Have
all
a great
soon.
evening to everyone too. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye, guys.
Bye.